what point did that get you interested in DMT and even more specifically intravenous DMT, which is the DMTX program?
Yeah, gosh, how did I? So I was interested in DMT even before I had worked with ketamine. A friend of mine had introduced me to Changa, the smoke version of DMT. Maybe how long has it been now? 12 years or so, 13 years ago, and it's so short. Like it's a
Hmm.
highly evocative experience, utterly life transforming, world reality existential breaking through, right? All of the things. But it was too short. It's like 3 minutes, 4 minutes in these peak spaces. And you get blown into this whole new reality that is appears to be completely inhabited by these hyper intelligent, hyper dimensional beings that don't even seem animal. They're so alien to us, right? They're not even, some of them are not even humanoid. um, but it's just so short. And I've never truly been drawn to working with ayahuasca. It's just like it's just for whatever reason it hasn't called to me yet in a big way. And I also have, like personally, I have some chronic stomach conditions which make it hard for me to hold things that generally induce nausea, and so it might not be as safe for me to actually regularly take ayahuasca. um, and so Rick Strassman and Andrew Gallimore actually came up with the idea, and they wrote this paper and published it in what, 2016, 2017. And I read it, and I was about how to extend the DMT peak experience into a longer session using targeted infusion technology. And that's, so it's real simple. It's actually really simple. This is an infusion pump that's used in ketamine treatments and anesthesiology. So the technology already exists. Um, and I was just fascinated by this idea. It's just something about it inspired me beyond anything I had experienced before. I was really thinking, I think one of the things, the question I asked, I remember the question I asked, which led me to explore this, was if, okay, Daniel, like you're a healer, like this is what I do for a living. I work in the healing profession. Like I got trained as a psychotherapist, even though I no longer identify as a psychotherapist, and I work with people to heal really big trauma. And I at a certain point, it's like that became my day job. It's what I do. I'm immersed in it. I love it. But there's a thread of feeling like this is what society requires of me to be accepted by mainstream society. Oh, you're interested in psychedelics, those are drugs, but as long as you use them in a way that don't hurt people and can help heal people, maybe you're okay. Maybe you're like, you have a place in mainstream society if we can use you in some way. Does that make sense? um like
Yeah.
it's kind of like a mainstream patriarchal imposition that I am only allowed to exist if I'm usable by this mainstream system. So the mainstream system causes all this injury, causes war, causes trauma, and somehow Daniel's responsibility and all medicine people's responsibility for us to have the right to exist, we have to give back to this society by healing the trauma that was induced by the system in the first place. It felt like a setup. It didn't feel like again, I love being a healer. This is what I do, but this part of it, to be um, accepted by society, didn't fit. Like I'm counterculture. I never was part of this society. Why would I strive to be accepted by it? I consider it toxic, right? So I started thinking about this question. If my interest in psychedelics, if I had that, if I already had like the healership piece taken care of, which I did, I have a clinic, I help people, I have a whole team of people helping people. I've got that down. What am I called to do as a psychedelic facilitator, as a psychedelic guide? what inspires me the most. And I started thinking about that study, or that, the proposal that
Mm.
Rick and Andrew made about extending the DMT state. And I realized that that was like the apex of what we could do as a psychedelic culture. It was like the most complicated medically, it uses advanced medical technology, uses pharmacokinetic principles of infusion rates and all these things. It's hyper complex, but it's also connected to like an ancient technology, just like consciousness exploration, just for the sake of consciousness exploration, not anything else. And just because I was curious, like we do this because we can. And I was like, so I started talking to people about it, about this idea that Andrew came up with. And people always started asking me, well, what would it take to do it? What would it actually take to do this, to pull this off? So I started thinking about that, and I started talking to people about that. Well, this is what it would take to pull this off. This is what we would do. And then they started to ask, well, why not do it? Why not just go ahead and do it? And so I started to explore actually bringing it into the world. And I'm not part of a research organization, I'm not part of a university. And so for me, it became an issue of how do I do it within my means as a human being on the planet outside of the research environment. Um, so it's like anything with psychedelics. I think one thing led to another, one curiosity cultivated into another curiosity, until it got its own momentum, right? And then I felt like there was something. One, at first it was like something interfering with our ability to engage it, and then all of a sudden it opened up, and we were able to do it. We were actually able to facilitate our first crew of DMTX psychonauts.